people like Ben are, and he knows this, okay? He's not stupid. I would never accuse Ben Burgess. I'll accuse him of many other things, of being incredibly disingenuous and really starting to jump in on a grift train. But I will never accuse him of being dumb, because he's not, which makes it worse for him because he cannot use stupidity as an argument. He knows this. The right knows this. The right knows that the whole point of the culture war is to change the laws, to turn it into policy. That is what they want, and that is what they are incredibly successful at when they are in office. So it strikes me as just incredibly naive or incredibly disingenuous to think otherwise, that this is a separate discussion to be had, that culture war is discussed in a vacuum outside of policy and outside of legislation.
When the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Today we're going to talk about Ben Burgess, who, if you're on the online left in any way, you know who he is. He is someone who emerged from the Michael Brooks orbit. He was a recurrent guest on the Michael Brooks show, and then kind of self-branded himself as a logic lord for the left, because, you know, for the past decade, it's the right that's been trying to desperately make it seem that they're the ones who are owning the libs with facts and logic, as Ben Shapiro always does or claims in his video titles. So it was sort of refreshing, I think, to see, you know, an actual logic professor kind of step into this space and attempt to give some kind of order and coherence to what is often very passionate and over-emotional argumentation on the left, but that sometimes fails in the coherency aspect. So I don't know what happened to him. I'm tempted to say that ever since Michael Brooks passed away, his moral compass kind of died with him, because he just hasn't been the same for the last couple of years. And he's gone on a kind of, I wouldn't say anti-woke streak, but on a pretty much a class reductionist streak, basically kind of minimizing or rather overemphasizing the hysteria that is attached to certain woke issues, whether it's related to, I don't know, trans rights, things like that, and basically claiming that none of this really matters in the broader scheme of things. We should only focus on, you know, the economic, social policy aspects. And if we focus on that, if the left focuses on that, then it'll win. I think he's wrong. And we're going to see a tweet that he made today, which I thought was appalling, to say the least, following the Buffalo shooting. So let's see what he wrote. You don't counteract the ugly influence of the Tucker Carlsons of the world, exposing them as the scapegoating pseudo-populists they are, by playing away games on their cultural turf. You do it with laser focus on the bread and butter issues where they have nothing whatsoever to offer. So, in a nutshell, this is pretty much class reductionism. It's basically saying, cultural aspects don't really matter. Ultimately, voters are rational. This is a very homo economicus term. Voters are rational. So they must, if you present to them the reality of, I don't know, Medicare for all or $15 minimum wage, then they will naturally gravitate to those positions rather than, bombard them with trans activism or LGBTQ activism, or anything that is broadly whatever's the current thing in the culture war. So I responded. First tweet was had nothing really to do with this, but it's a response to his Ukraine takes, which are piss poor. Basically, sort of the Chomsky whitewashing of the Kremlin's propaganda. But I'll read it anyway because I thought it was funny. Why not just negotiate with them, Ben? Offer up a few concessions like deporting brown people. Surely that will lead to peace in our time. Why are you escalating and risking civil war? Because their argument is like, no, Ukraine needs to negotiate with Russia and offer concessions, including territory. If not, Russia's just going to nuke the world. Hilariously stupid argument. But anyway, that's really not the point of this discussion. So, how was this tweet reacted to? I'm going to show some of the quote tweets because a lot of people took issue about it because it really is bad. It really is, it's minimizing the fact that a lot of these culture war arguments for a lot of people are very serious because it involves, the very essence of their identity and, an identity that a lot of people on the right want to completely destroy. Okay, there's no shortage of right-wing commentators who want to basically, eradicate trans people and take away LGBTQ rights, take away women's rights. So all these things are important in a practical sense. It's not about, who gets the most upvotes on Reddit. It's not about who gets more likes on Twitter. I know there's a certain element of the left that is perhaps a bit too obsessed with culture war issues, and often make this seem like the entire left is just obsessed with that and nothing else. But I don't think that's the majority of people. And I think for the people who are directly affected by the kind of violence that this type of very hostile rhetoric leads to, inevitably, I tweeted the other day in response to the Buffalo shooting, conservatism in 2021 equals a mass shooting in 2022, because it starts with words and ends with gunshots. So let's look at some of the tweets. Sorry, some of the quote tweets. So yeah. Issues. You really think people on that side of racist world care about issues? They don't even think for themselves. Everything they say is a parroted closing monologue from Carson's show. Then again, that's what the libs and dems do too. That's why things stay the same. Of course, I mean, it was sort of the same with vaccines. You could present all the evidence in the world to these people about how vaccines are effective. They didn't care. They still held on to their conspiracy theories that there was a microchip in them or whatever, or their horse dewormer. So you can't reason with these people. They are focused on, if their mind only operates on culture war issues, there's really no other way to sway them other than, putting your argument there as well. What else? Well, that sort of says everything. Yeah, you can't combat ideological racism with good economic policy. This is a class reductionist pipe dream. I'm sorry to say, but bread and butter issues for marginalized people includes not being harassed or murdered. Seems pretty, important to point that out. You must be nice being privileged enough not to have to worry about defending yourself against white supremacy. Reminder that the Buffalo shooter said he supports workers owning the means of production, but it depends on who those workers are. So I have an odd feeling that this race-blind economic populism would not sway people like him. Yep. How does that work exactly? LGBT teachers are smeared as groomers to get them fired and undermine the very notion of public education, and the left counters with what? Tell suburbanite psychos there's no war but class war and call it a day. That's all the truth. Yeah. Bitch, you couldn't even critique the right when you had the biggest platform to offer up alternatives. And that refers to his appearance on Joe Rogan, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. Yeah, so it's just terrible. This take is wrong. Socialists cannot and should not. I mean, I don't even just mean socialists. I think, leftists in general. Socialists cannot and should not concede social issues to the right. Instead, socialists must fight against all forms of discrimination, hatred, and bigotry as an essential part to building the multiracial, gender-diverse movement of the working class. And this is exactly what Bernie did. A lot of the times, I think some people saw Bernie as being too class reductionist, but he wasn't. I mean, he did manage to build a multiracial coalition, especially in the 2020 run. I think there were some accusations in 2016 that he was, the Bernie bros were typically kind of middle class white people, male whites. But in 2020, that changed, and it, you don't. This is not a trade-off. That's the error in Ben's analysis. This is not a trade-off. There is no limited bandwidth to only have to focus on either the culture stuff or the economic class arguments. You can do both. So, yeah. Cultural issues are material for those who experience them. Abortion bans are class warfare. So are bans on transgender medicine. Besides, I don't want the lost cause interpretation of the Civil War to become accepted historical fact again. So, what else happened? This was another reply to him. Culture war issues are material for those who experience them. Immigration policy and borders have been shaped by capitalist interest. Abortion restrictions are a form of class war and control of reproductive labor. Getting LGBT teachers fired is as bread and butter as it gets. Very true. What is his response? You're talking about social policy issues, not culture war issues. Are you fucking insane? Just how deranged do you have to be to not think that this has anything to do with the culture war? This is astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Neither I nor any other leftist outside maybe 3 guys on Reddit who criticizes fixation on culture war uses culture war to describe issues about what the laws should be. Really? All these transgender issues are related to laws. The abortion issues are related to, it's all related to laws. Because that's the thing that, left governments, and I would say even the Democratic Party when it's in office, should do to protect them. And that's everything that right-wingers want to destroy. They know this. They know this better than Ben does, because that's exactly what they do when they're in office. And we've seen it with all these states that have put all these, book bans, teacher bans, whatever, the abortion thing in Texas, all the other bills that are coming out against transgender people. They know this better than Ben does. And I respond to him. Getting LGBT teachers fired because they are LGBT and supposedly teaching CRT and other quote woke propaganda is literally the pinnacle of the culture war transforming into actual policy. What do you think is the point of it otherwise? Reddit upvotes? Jesus Christ. Exactly. This all leads, this is what people like Ben are, and he knows this, okay? He's not stupid. I would never accuse Ben Burgess. I'll accuse him of many other things, of being incredibly disingenuous and really starting to jump in on a grift train. But I will never accuse him of being dumb, because he's not, which makes it worse for him, because he cannot use stupidity as an argument. He knows this. The right knows this. The right knows that the whole point of the culture war is to change the laws, to turn it into policy. That is what they want, and that is what they are incredibly successful at when they are in office. So it strikes me as just incredibly naive or incredibly disingenuous to think otherwise, that this is a separate discussion to be had, that culture war is discussed in a vacuum outside of policy and outside of legislation. So, yeah, and again, this goes back to his Joe Rogan appearance and the downhill slide that we've seen from him on. I haven't read his book about canceling comedians while the world burns. I probably don't have much reason to read it at this point anymore. But it's his defense of Dave Chappelle when he was on Joe Rogan, his minimizing of any consequence of what he said, the openly transphobic jokes that Dave Chappelle said, the fact that he hasn't been canceled at all. I made numerous videos. You can search my YouTube record. You can see all the videos that I made when the Dave Chappelle special came out. And they still get very angry comments from Dave Chappelle fans to this day. So they're some of my most popular videos in terms of views, and it's mostly because Dave Chappelle fans have found it and can't stop commenting on them. Anyone else in this leftist space was discussed this as well. Will get heat for this from these people, and he hasn't been canceled. Dave Chappelle hasn't been canceled. So, yeah, again, I don't know. Does he want to, court a certain element of Rogan's base? I don't know. But it's clear that he's taking a position that actually puts him in line with what a lot of far right people are saying. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he's gone this route and just become also supremely arrogant. I mean, I've called him out numerous times for his bad Ukraine takes. Sometimes he tries to debate me, fails miserably at it. I've challenged him to a debate. If by any chance Ben Burgess is listening to this, I'm always up for a scrap. But no. And the irony of this is, again, how if he's working on the bread and butter stuff and just thinks that anything else doesn't really matter, but he's really hypersensitive when it comes to other types of Nazis, like, I don't know, the Azov battalion. And this is a tweet from Branko Marchetish from Jacobin, who is probably the stupidest leftist on the internet when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. I already made a video of him, and he just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. At this point, he's basically a Kremlin propagandist, masquerading as a leftist. But this was a tweet that I think, and if I am wrong, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that when I came across this tweet for the first time, I should have screenshotted it. Ben Burgess had liked it. And I know this because I don't follow Branko Marchetish on Twitter. I get all his insane tweets because I follow Ben. And usually those are the tweets that he likes. Either Ben or Nathan Robinson from Current Affairs, who are all part of this little circle jerk of downplaying everything that Russia's doing. And he writes, the Buffalo shooter was inspired by the Christchurch shooter, who was inspired by Azov, who we've been assured for the last 3 months are actually not even extremist or anything to be concerned about. Bizarre stuff. Imagine just how utterly deranged you have to be to try and find a link between the Buffalo shooter and the Azov battalion and use that as a way of downplaying Ukraine's efforts in this war, because that's all that Branko does these days. And like I said, I pretty sure that when I saw this tweet earlier today, Ben Burgess had liked it. Don't know if he retracted the tweet eventually at one point. If I am wrong for whatever reason, again, I apologize. You can forget anything I've said in the last 2 minutes of this video ever happened. But like I said, I don't follow Branko. I always get his tweets from someone else liking them. And there's only 2 people who consistently like his tweets, and that is Ben Burgess and Nathan Robinson. So I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I think he when I first knew of his existence, I thought he was contributing in a positive way to the leftist space, but last couple of months, so much of the online left has ended up disappointing me that I'm not surprised. I have no problem putting Ben Burgess in this group of leftists who I'm increasingly doubting are true committed leftists and who seem to have one foot on the grift train. Not as obvious as, I don't know, like the Crystal Balls and the Brianna Joy Grays. They're in a league apart. But it's definitely the case that I see Ben Burgess trying to court a certain audience that, has kind of token support for left-wing issues, but is, entirely on the right on anything that is culture war. And his Rogan appearance is a good example of this, because Ben Burgess claimed that going on Rogan was a positive for the left, because he got Rogan to sort of nod and agree on certain leftist points, which he does all the time. He did it when Bernie Sanders is there. He just nods along and sort of, oh yeah, I kind of like that, and then just goes, spends 4 hours with his next guest, who's probably Jordan Peterson or James Lindsay or some other one of these far-right nutters, and then just spends 4 hours trashing everything that he nodded in the previous video. And so that wasn't a success, Ben. I hate to say this, that wasn't a success. And instead what you did was kind of tacitly agree with him on the culture war stuff, which is the driver of most of his audience. So let's see if you find your way back, which I doubt it. And on that note, if you like this video, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe. And see, I made 2 videos in 2 days. Okay, see, I told you I'm back. Can't guarantee that the pace will continue, but yeah, I will see you next time.